Who's slow coming up the hill, and all of a sudden here will come Chris Barrett. He's got himself an angle and a line and a way and a no and a how to the outside to take the lead, and he's done it.
Will this be complete though? Conway backs it up, tries to set it up, coming towards the outer loop this time. Barrett now to the race lead, had to recover from more than 5 seconds back after the two were separated on the pit sequence. Now Conway has one more section to try and find a way back around his teammate.
I wonder if he slowed up to make sure he had enough fuel to make it to the end. That will be the only reason why he dropped so dramatically on the run up through the S's section. But as he takes this rise now, if he's left himself enough on the fuel save, he'll have one place to attack. It's here at the heel of the boot. He looks to the inside. He sends up the inside. Oh, and the two make contact.
Bit of a battle down into Brooklands here, and this is Michael Davies trying to keep Lowendick from getting a second spot from his starting position, up from 8th to 7th, trying to get 6th spot, and he's on the inside. It's a drag race as they come onto the old pit straights, and he's going to have the inside. Teddy probably not going to give this one up as he's got the desired position. He has the higher ground. No, he's not going to have to give it up. Look at sending it in deep. Michael Davies is absolutely monster through there. Do they dare 3 wide? Trepanier thinking about it, then backs out, still carrying on down into the Maggots Beckons quarters, and Michael Davies is going to be able to successfully defend that spot.
It is quite amazing the turn of pace that Waring has gotten. Oh, there's been traffic for McGreevy up ahead, Zachary Brown and the Dog Bear BMW, and that has compromised Osowski, and that's going to be Waring trying to thread the needle on the outside coming into the 90, and at the pincer move with Osowski, he almost gets into Waring on the inside, but just manages to pull it up in time.
They've got to be a little bit careful about trying to be too aggressive going down into China Beach. It looks like Day's going to try to be later on the brakes, maybe make the move. Barbosa getting a little bit squirrely under braking, and that is all the opportunity that Rodrigo Mies needs. He's going to try to send it around the outside of madness. Here he comes, diving it down side by side with Raymond Day.
As we watch him go down through the corkscrew, back towards the right side, looking towards another amazing finish, taking up that inside, going in to turn 10, he takes the lead. How does he hold it?
And Prieto hold on after the send of the rainy curb. Here comes Espes. One final corner for the season. Later on the brakes is Espes. Espes goes for the cut. Prieto parks it on the apex.
As we watch the heart rate monitor almost making contact in front of him, side by side, up through Hawthorne, still nobody willing to give way between them, and through he goes. Kimmo manages to get in, so does Michael de Turk, as Suarez unfortunately dropping down to 13th.
Let's see, though, if Horvath is going to have anything. Tries to send a little bit of a move through the S's. Here he comes. A last-minute dive bomb. That is going to be into the inside line. Holding out to the outside as Horvath tries to get it. They spin. They spin across the line and make contact.
Brands Hatch gave us yet more stunning racing along its narrow trails. In the same vein, today's track won't offer much space width-wise, but it's a lot longer of a circuit with much longer straights. Will this make the overtaking any easier compared to last week? We'll find out soon as we get ready to watch round 6 of the Lotus 79 Sunday Grand Prix Series, and you'll see it all live here on the Global SimRacing Channel. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is DJ Clark. Behind the scenes is our director, Ryan Bauer, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Virginia International Raceway is certainly a unique beast in modern racing. Let's head to our track guide to learn more. Welcome to Virginia International Raceway. This track near the southern border of its namesake has had the rare blessing of being resurrected from the dead. With 2 decades of use in its modern incarnation and still drawing regular visits from IMSA and Trans Am, it's safe to say that VIR is back and thriving. The owners didn't skimp on refurbishing the place either. An impressive 7 versions are available to run on iRacing, with viewing areas that include posh villas near South Bend that can be rented by fans. The track's long and complex layout has earned it some colorful corner names too. The horseshoe kicks things off right away with a never-ending double apexer that tends to suck the greedy out into its runoff. Later on, fast cars lacking downforce are sent through the terrifying climbing S's and spit out of the steep drop of South Bend. Of course, there's perhaps the most famous turn of Oak Tree, which has sadly lost its eponymous flora in real life, but is retained here in the virtual world. Let's not forget one of the scariest obstacles at the end of the lap, the roller coaster. The incredible speed drivers carry up into this blind braking zone is what causes it to require such immense bravery in order to get the most out of a lap. As you'd expect, the high number of corners makes passing rather difficult. Add in the fact that many of them are dangerously swift, and track position can wind up being a major factor in races. With the picturesque backdrop of the Appalachians around them, fans are not left wanting when they come to watch drivers face off at this historic track. It's no wonder the circuit has found success in its second chance at life. Well, DJ, this is going to be an interesting one. It does have a bit of an old school feel to it, though, so I think the Lotus 79 should fit right in here.
It certainly should, Joe, but that doesn't mean that overtaking is not going to be in an absolute premium around here. There's really only 2 good areas to get an overtake done, and that's both in draft-assisted areas. Number 1, coming down the front stretch into Horseshoe tends to be a pretty good area and the most common one. From there, the second one is getting a good run out of Oak Tree, getting a draft around that long back straightaway and trying to get a move into the tricky roller coaster, although that is a little bit harder. But other than that, it's a lot of just going to be follow the leader, try to force the driver in front of you into a mistake, if at all possible, and really and truly try to see if you can keep all 4 tires on the road, because as you come up through the snake and the rising S's and that tricky back and forth section that leads all the way up through South Bend, just trying to keep your car in control is going to be difficult enough.
Yeah, no doubt about that. This place has always been the bane of my existence, whatever I'm driving. But for the drivers, hopefully they'll have fun. And right now, as far as their situation goes in terms of the championship, Andy T leads the way over Marco Kayla. From there, it jumps back a little bit. Pauli Partonen about 40 points behind him in a close fight with Karjalainen after his win back at Brands Hatch. Gernot Friesche still hovering within the top 5. Always got to watch out for him in races, even if his qualifying hasn't been as stellar. He's still a threat in this championship. Let's head off to the teams championship as well.
Well, in the team's championship, it's about the same standings up at the top, with Ligier Gitanes up in first place with 141 points. Back from them is Arrow's Racing Team, back by about 20 points, with Cooper's Car, Fittipaldi Automotive closing in on them, only 3 points back. So a good battle brewing for second place. Another good battle brewing for fourth place is Scuderia Ferrari Spacefic is tied with Equip Renault Team Elf. So a very, very tight battle there. And just behind them off your screen, John Player Team Lotus, only a single point back. So a very tight battle for that fourth place position.
Indeed. And as we take a look at today's race details, it is 26 laps around here for the halfway point of the season. Open setup series. Now, that's going to be a real talking point. From what we've been told, it's a toss-up on if you want low or high downforce, and either could be fast. Now, they don't have a spare car, so if you wind up with damage, which can be easy to do around here, you're going to have to come in for repairs. They will also have some penalties on hand if they abuse the track limits or wind up spinning or wrecking too often. Now, as we head off to the race, before we get there, we want to make sure and get you to check out the Majors Garage, which is the home of free Baseline Plus setups. Get help from any of the garage coaches 24/7. Sign up now for awesome, affordable monthly subscriptions, telemetry, coaching, and more at majorsgarage.com. Or use our special discount code MajorsGSRC for 10% off. We have a link in the description below that directly applies our special offer. Starting to get most of the times in for the first lap from our drivers in the qualifying, and Pauli Partanen currently holds the provisional pole over Andy T. A bit surprising, ever since T first lost out at Le Mans, almost seems like he hasn't been able to get quite back on the horse here.
Yeah, indeed. It's been a little bit of out-of-character moments for Andy, so we'll have to see if he is able to recover here a little bit more. But with him being slightly off the pace, Joe, I wonder if he's maybe running a little bit of a lower downforce setup. We talked about those setups coming into play and how that can play out. But if he's running a lower downforce setup, he may be slower in a straight line, but he'll be able to keep everything nice and together.
And I'm watching Partanen. His second lap goes about a 10th quicker, so he puts himself nearly a half a second away from T as we ride on board with him into the roller coaster. Just a few more corners to go. He is 3/10 up. If that's accurate, then that means he's going to be just shy of taking the pole away from Pauli Partanen. Let's see as he comes through Hogpen and to the start line. It is now looking like he's only a 10th up. Not sure if he's going to have enough to do it. He crosses. It is a 34.3. He will not be on pole, but he stays in second.
He does indeed, and that's going to be very, very key. I think starting on the front row is going to be where you want to be around here as we now watch Barry West yet to set a time. Let's see what the UKNA driver has as he heads over the hill into roller coaster. This is such a tricky section of the track.
Absolutely. You can see the car struggling to find grip, so he must have trimmed it out a little bit himself. First lap was deleted for him, unfortunately. We've still got Gernot Friesche after him, and that is going to be it for our qualifying. So as we watch Barry West without a time, will he be the only one that remains without it? He will. The second lap deleted as well. So from 17th on the grid for poor Barry West today. A little bit disappointing for him. What about Gernot Friesche in that Fittipaldi machine as we ride over his shoulder down the hill into Hogpen?
And here he comes through here. You want to take this as pretty much flat out as possible. Just a little bit of lifting will help you along the way. Is he going to be able to improve on that 135? He's tracking relatively well. Let's see if he's got it. He is able to jump up a little bit more.
Up to 7th place, and that will certainly help him out a lot. Oh, I have been proven wrong. Jean-Francois Boscus is around for a second lap. However, it looks like he is off the pace here. I wonder if he's come out of pit lane is what's happening here. And he's got about a minute left. I'm not even sure he's going to get to the line in time.
I'm not sure he will as well as he goes around to Oak Tree, but we can at least see just how crucial that run is. You see how long of a straightaway this is, just pretty much as straight as the other end of the track is curvy. This is that big draft area that I talked about that you really want to maximize to maybe get a move done into roller coaster if possible.
Thankfully, the sun's finally come out for us. It was so cloudy for a bit there. Got awful dark, and it's 84 Fahrenheit on the track, so just about at the right temperature for our drivers, 29 Celsius for the metric folks. And onto the front stretch out of Hogpen. And he's going to abandon the lap anyway, so it was a moot point, which means it's time to head to our starting grid for the day. Pauli Partanen with his first broadcast race pole. He's followed by Andy T to his outside, and it's a decent margin between them. Can T keep up? Michael de Turk starts from third as Teemu Vaskalapi will be P4. Then it is Steve Bycroft starting from fifth as Jukka Tolinen will be P6. You've got Gernot Friese in seventh, Mikko Lino in 8th, and then row 5 has Severi Seppa to the inside and Paul Williams to the outside.
It's going to be Karthik Pai lining up, Timothy Reed lining up in P11, followed by Isaac Snyder with Karthik Pai in 13th and Pablo Suarez 14th. Armando Edwards will be lining up to the inside of row 8, followed by Jean-Francois Boscus with Barry West. They're unable to set a time back in row 9.
A little bit of a scant field today, but we are on the 24 Hours of Daytona weekend here on iRacing, so I think there's a lot of drivers that are a little bit tired right now, maybe taking a chance to pass. And we are in the highest split of 2 here in today's event. So we've got 16 others out in the lower split racing simultaneously, but that means there's going to be a lot of points in order here for this split. In fact, I'm looking through and the lowest I'm seeing is a 2,800 I rating. So it is steep today out there. And they just about have them all lined up. We're waiting on our front row to work their way to the grid. We also need Tolinen, Seppa, and Snyder here before we get rolling. It looks like we've now got Partanen, the Finn, on the board. Let's see if he can follow up this pole with a victory today. What kind of race are we in store for at this very difficult circuit, sometimes called the mini green hell with its difficulty? Looks like everybody's out there as the lights come up and the engines start to rev and the green flag is out. It's a poor start for Andy T as de Turk gets up alongside him. And then behind them, Vaskalapi is giving watch, tries to thread the needle, makes contact. T runs into him. Both of them are off. And behind them, everybody else is able to avoid it.
Oh my goodness, Teemu immediately on the radio apologizing there. That appearing to be his fault on that, but that completely not only throws a big wrench into the championship order, but just the running of this race as well.
Unbelievable, the bad luck after starting out the season so well. Andy T just can't seem to make things work, but this is great news for Partanen and de Turk, who have put a monster gap between themselves and third place Tolinen.
Indeed, they have that gap holding at about 1.6 seconds right now. So if I'm Pauli Partanen or Michael de Turk, I am just in a little bit of coast mode trying to keep that car together. But right now, what they've got to worry about is just making sure that they get these tires up to temperature and getting into a good operating range with them. You don't want to push too hard too early.
Wow, that distance is incredible here already. That wreck to the horseshoe definitely separated things big time. Really, the closest train we've got is from Bycroft on back. You can see Lino in that red and white machine in the background being charged upon by Seppa, but he can't quite get it as they break into the roller coaster. We come around to complete the first lap, and your order for the podium is Partanen, de Turk, Tolinen.
Indeed, as we ride on board now with Severi Seppa trying to claw his way back through the field, but there is Pauli Partanen, your leader right now. De Turk looking like he's a little bit of ways back, about 0.7 seconds back, not wanting to push too hard on that. We ride on board with the New Yorker here, just slowly but surely trying to eke his way forward. Looks like he's losing a little bit down the straightaways, but he's able to gain up in some of the twistier bits, so I wonder if De Turk is maybe running with a little bit of a higher downforce setting.
I feel like that's going to be a story all throughout today, because I'm seeing other drivers with similar situations where it's an ebb and flow between them. Already on lap 2, flying under the bridge up towards the climbing S's, and look at how the track undulates as it weaves back and forth.
Such a tricky portion of the track. You look at the overhead, Joe, and it almost looks like that there's no curve at all, but with the elevation change at that point in VIR, such a difficult place to get right. Very easy. I would not be surprised, and indeed, we've already got a driver off in the back. I believe that was Pablo Suarez coming around. I was going to say coming through South Bend is an area that you almost always see a driver or two get it wrong and fly off into the grass.
Also had an off for Isaac Snyder, who went off in the horseshoe himself, lost a lot of places. We're watching from Suarez now way down the order in 15th. The other group that I was watching, whoa, as things go side by side in front of him, and that is Boskus with Barry West trying to sneak through. So West has some latent pace in him that his qualifying was not able to show.
Indeed he does. Paul Parton and setting the fastest lap of the race here as now they tuck up behind each other, keeping an eye to see if there's anything. This is the Hoosier Steve Bycroft closing in on the back of Yuka Tolan, making up for a little bit of a battle here for that final podium position.
Absolutely. He's still trying to see if he can peel this away from the Finn as they weave through the left hook and then up into the snake, another spot where the track just switches back and forth constantly, easily flat out for these drivers. And then they get up to immense speeds here. Foot still to the floor, 165 miles an hour as they enter into the S's, hovering about that range before finally into South Bend having to hit the brakes, and Bycroft not able to get close enough.
No, he's not, but here he comes. Whoa! Big little wiggle there from Yuka Tolan, and that's going to be exactly what Steve Bycroft wants to see. He's going to tuck that nose of the number 3 up behind him here. I don't think he's going to be quite close enough to get a move into roller coaster, even with that draft on the backstretch, but it should allow him to really start putting some pressure. Yeah, there you see him just kind of poking his nose to the inside, trying to fill those rear wing mirrors of Yuka Tolan as much as possible.
And Seppa behind them just managed to overtake Lino. He'd been working on that for a while. He's the other one I've been watching who seems to have a trimmed out car. He is just a lightning bolt in a straight line. That could wind up helping him as things go on. We're on board with Miko. The number 9 now has to try and get past, but without the straight line speed that his rival has.
And that's going to be very, very tricky. There's no real overtaking opportunities coming after a twisty, fiddly bit section. And so that means he is just going to have to try to force an error out of Seppa in front of him. But that's going to be a tall, tall order if Seppa is that quick in a straight line.
Makes me wonder if Seppa was being held up a little bit here, because I'm curious to see if once they get to this straight line, if he'll be able to start running away and chase down Steve Bycroft, potentially try and fight for podium out there as he comes up through the climbing S's himself. We're not missing anything up at the front right now. Parthenen still leads to Turk by about a second and a half.
Paulie's been able to grow that gap by about 0.4 of a second per lap, so a good run there from Paulie Parthenen to really get that move done. Doing a very, very good job just putting everything he needs, jumping back in the field. This is Karthik Pai. He's currently trying to work a little bit on Paul Williams, tucking behind in the draft on the backstretch.
Pai started this race from 13th, up 3 positions, trying to make it 4. Paul Williams going to deny him for now. Bit of a train forming with Reed at the front of it, and behind them they're also pulling along Andy T, who is on a recovery now after being punted off a little bit there in the first corner. Almost looked like he had a little damage on the rear wing too.
Yeah, that's going to really, really hurt him in a straight line, Joe, and that's going to be very detrimental. Well, not too detrimental, as he sets the fastest lap of the race there.
Yeah, he pulled a little bit of slipstream from those ahead of him, but this is going to be fascinating to watch. How much pace does he have in him, and does he have it trimmed out as well, or will that bent wing slow him down in a straight line? They're going to get the first taste of it here from the snake up to the climbing S's, where they can really keep the foot in it as they start to get faster and faster. Reed at the front of this train here on lap 5 and gaining just a little bit. That's good news, at least for Andy T.
You can see just how much he's having to really chuck the car into the corner there. this Lotus 79, just loving those high-speed corners. And the other thing that he's got to watch out for here a little bit is managing the rear tires, Joe. You've got to be very, very careful. Yes, these tires are built to last, but if you overheat them, it is like you are absolutely sliding around on ice. You've got to be very, very careful. Very easy to spin the rear wheels with just as much torque is being put through that rear axle.
Don't need to go to it, but Isaac Snyder with another off, hit the barrier in Oak Tree, and I'm not sure if he's going to be able to continue very well as he seems to be limping at home right now. But Andy T is coming off of Hogpen. Another long straight, and here he looks much closer. He is indeed gaining on Karthik Pai. Does he try and overtake the Texan down into the horseshoe? He's going to go for it. He's got the inside. Karthik does not defend, and it looks like Andy T is now into the top 10.
All right, so clearly that rear wing damage not hurting Andy in a straight line. That really, to me, tells me that he is running a super, super trimmed out setup and that the rear wing damage is not enough to overcome the outright straight line speed that he had.
So they stay in a train. That's even better news for Andy T, because he's managed to get one and he hasn't lost too much ground to Paul Williams. That's always the hard thing as you try and fight your way through the field, DJ, is losing time every time you have to make those passes.
Indeed, and for Andy here, I think he's just got to be very, very methodical in the way he tries to do this. I would not be surprised if he doesn't go for a crazy move down into roller coaster. As I said, that's a little bit of a more difficult area to overtake. A little bit of twitch out of the car there. That's just a little bit of spinning of those rear wheels that I talked about. And he's got to make sure he keeps this aggression underneath him. You don't want to get too aggressive with that throttle pedal, as it can really, really come back to bite you. He just needs to set up really well here. Later on the brakes, then Williams in front of him. He's going to be right up behind.
Slide the car into it a bit, too. He needs to be close, though. Last time he saw himself be able to retain a bit of a gap, but the car just wants to push out to the exit, and it doesn't look as likely this time as it was with Karthik, who you can see dropping off in the background even. So we jump up now to Steve Bycroft. Now, Steve's in trouble here. He's still close to Tolmanen, but I've been watching Seppa, and Seppa has set his personal best the last 2 laps, and both of those have been quicker than Bycroft.
Yeah, Severy really on a charge here, being able to try to keep up the best of his abilities. And he's going to put a lot of pressure here to Bycroft. And that is, I think, going to maybe allow Jukka Tolvanen to start to slip away in the distance. Steve's going to have to start looking in his rearview mirrors a little bit more as he sees that black Lotus starting to come up behind him.
Well, we always talk about the psychological game, and I guess that plays a part in more ways than one in racing, because Paul Williams pulled over for Andy T and let him by. Did not want to fight that one, so Andy T gets another one much more easily this time. And as we watch Bycroft try to reel in Tolvanen, man, so close yet so far, he's just not near enough to try and make this happen. But here comes Seppa as his speed gets up to about 173 miles an hour before he finally slows it up.
Indeed, and a little bit of a check up there for Steve Bycroft. He started to get close enough behind Jukka Tolvanen that he had to sort of check himself up, change his braking zone. That's going to cost him about 1/10 of a second as they work their way through roller coaster.
Seppa still about half a second back this time across for Bycroft to 36.3. Seppa a little slower, 36.1. What if he's feeling a little bit of a wash from the car ahead now?
Certainly could be. We haven't talked about it all that much, as we're going to go back here, I think, and take a replay of that starting incident that caught out Andy T.
Yep, and this was just a good old-fashioned missed your brake marker and didn't anticipate the line here. Yep, with the 3 wide, he had very few places to go and just plowed into him.
Yeah, you saw him there trying to sort of weave back and forth a little bit, try to avoid that incident at all. Look out the back of Andy's rear wing. You're going to get a perfect view of this. That was just a mega start from Timu, but
Escalapi winds up making the contact that really played a decisive role in this race, because we thought Andy T would be the one to try and challenge Partonen. Here's Vascalapi's perspective. Yeah, he did much better than T off the line. And he almost would have had space, because it looks like he was, if he wasn't so far inside, he wouldn't have had to try and take avoidance not to run into the Turk. But he had to weave off the left, and, well, his car was on a trajectory at that point, and that was all she wrote.
Yeah, if you get even the merest bit sideways in these Lotus 79s, it can be very, very hard to woe it back up. And the worst thing you can do is locking the brakes on these cars, because it's not like you're driving in a prototype or a GT where you've got some help to kind of cane you. It is just going to absolutely catch you out. But we jump back to Severi Seppa, who's closed that gap down to Steve Bycroft and getting very, very threatening.
Still missing a tenth or two compared to the laps he was running earlier, but yeah, he is now within striking range if he finds himself with a good exit, which is probably going to be the deciding factor in this battle. Where can he get the run onto a long straight? He seems incredibly fast today with that wing turned down as far as he dares, and look at him just slide up to that exit curve out of South Bend.
Yeah, he is really chucking the car around here. Good run off of Oak Tree, though. You could see that close. But it looks like that he didn't exactly get the power down. I think Bycroft may have a little bit more straight line speed, Joe. Look at the way he's just pulling away.
Ah, wow, that is shocking. And that is going to make life extremely frustrating for the Finn, since it looks like he has got much better speed. Amazing to see these cars actually get a little bit off the ground at some spots. They're supposed to suck to the ground.
It shows you just the amount of elevation change that comes at you so quickly here at VIR. Really, really throwing them off. Yeah, and you can see there the gap expanding out a little bit for Severi Seppa on the back of those two longer straights. So here is my sort of idea of what's going on with this. I think Tolanen is the most trimmed out here. Bycroft has got a little bit of a middle ground setup, and I think Seppa focused a little bit more on a heavier downforce setup. That seems to be the way these three cars are running.
Just a quick update that last lap, Andy T managed to get by Timothy Reed, so he is now into 8th. He's got 2.5 seconds to get up to Mikko Leno. Let's see what his lap times look like compared to our leaders. Actually, I think T still holds the fastest lap, if I'm seeing correctly.
Yes, I believe he does by about 0.05 of a second. So T, even with that damage, very, very quick around here.
Unbelievable. Yeah, he probably would have been challenging Partonen, no doubt, if that wreck hadn't happened into the horseshoe on lap 1. Back on board once again with Mikko. As I mentioned, just up the road from T, but he's been trying to keep up with Gernot Friesche, who's been a bit anonymous this race, but that's become his MO in recent seasons. He's gone up one position, but hasn't really shown much since then.
No, he really hasn't, and he hasn't been able to fully pull away from Lino behind him. And I've got to be a little bit worried. I'm sure he's got his F3 relative up, and he's able to see that Andy T is starting to charge up behind, already taken out a couple of tenths of a second there out of that gap as he sets another fastest lap of the race. So Gernot is soon going to have his hands full with Andy T.
That'll be a fascinating fight. Multi-time champion versus the man who seems hot to trot this season. So Andy T now through the left hook. And yeah, it is down to 1.9 seconds there briefly. But he is hustling that car. And one of the disadvantages of having less wing is the car slides more, DJ. And well, it's going to be questionable what he's got underneath him once he gets up to the top of the field.
Yeah, it certainly is. And, you know, these Lotuses, they are built to run on the same tire for an entire race, but that doesn't mean that you don't have to watch out for them. When you lose the tires in these cars, whether through overheating or through tire wear, it's basically game over. You're on a skating rink. There is absolutely nothing left. And as I talked about, with all of the torque that goes through the big rear wheels on this car, you're just going to find yourself in wheel spin city. And once you get into that, it's very, very hard to get out of it.
And we can even see T in the background now, becoming a little bit more than a speck than he was before. As we watch from the rear wing of the Fittipaldi car of Gernot Frische on the front stretch now, starting lap 12 out of our 26-lap event today. So just about at the halfway point. This is T's perspective now as well from the nose.
Yeah, he's really been able to close that gap up. He's got it down to about 1.2 seconds, so already dropped about a second out of that. He's just gaining. Oh, that's Gernot off?
And that's going to hand the position over to Lino. So that is one spot down, but at least he stops it before his rival gets there, and that was just NASCAR Ben doing its thing, as multiple drivers over the years have found it just a little too tricky in the braking zone. Here we go.
Yeah, brings it on in and through, trying to get it woed up. That rear end just wanting to step out, brought a little bit too much speed into the corner, and the rear tires just screaming out in agony as he goes through there. So not able to get it done.
So this makes life a little nicer for T because it gives him more of a slipstream. But look at this, and so does it for Gernot Frische, who's going to easily drag past Nico like it was nothing. Well, there's the spot right back within the same lap. A little look to the inside from the fin, but nothing doing.
And I've got to say there from Miko, I wouldn't have necessarily advised that, because that just cost him valuable time that Andy T is going to absolutely gobble up here. Oh, look at his hands, Joe. He is just absolutely wheeling and dealing that car all the way through into the draft of Miko Lino. Here he comes down to the inside. It looks like if he can just be later on the brakes, he's got this done.
Yeah, for a car that's supposed to be glued to the track, he is doing a lot of counter steering right now. And that's impressive, the control that Andy T has on this thing. So now, up to 7th place. Can he run down Frische, or will he get another mistake out of the Austrian?
Well, we'll have to see. VIR, as I talked about, it's one of those places that it's very, very easy to make one of those mistakes. Just run a little bit wide at any one of these corners, and that big open expanse of grass is just beckoning you to come on out and do a little bit of lawn mowing.
Just want to tie up one of the threads that we mentioned earlier. Sepp has actually lost touch with Bycroft now, is back to 1 second behind him. So looks like he's dropped off pace a little bit. Look how close together this group is now, coming on to the back stretches. The clouds come over, cooling down the track. And T, with Lino so close behind him, has to maybe play a little bit of rear guard, but no, he is just a little too fast in a straight line compared to the Finn. Not fast enough compared to Frische.
Just wickedly fast in a straight line. You could see that yellow car of Gernot Frische getting bigger and bigger in Andy T's visor. Really able to close up behind. Let's see if he can get a good run here out of that final corner of Hogpen. Here comes Andy.
Seems to like that exit of that corner. The car handles it well. Aggressive defensive move from Gernot Frische, almost pushing him off into the grass, but he's given just enough space, and a lot of wheel spin there from Frische. Unfortunately, that puts him slow out of the horseshoe, side by side, coming up in an NASCAR bend. Miko Lino trying to do it the hard way around, and he's got it.
Oh, an opportunistic move there from Miko Lino, but just smelling some blood in the water and absolutely going for it.
Front row seat to the show here. Look at that. I expected as much, frankly, from Gernot. I knew he was not going to give that one up easily. Forced him to the inside, but the car just did not want to accept that throttle pedal, and eventually he had to give way.
Yeah, he did indeed. That big amount of wheel spin really coming back to bite him there, and very, very opportunistic and heads up from Miko Lino to be able to jump his way up forward, but Gernot's about to have him back, trying to get a little bit of a run here on the backstretch.
And we've got Bycroft, who is going around the side of Tolanen, side by side, and in front of him there's an off. That is Partanen. Partanen is off and into the barrier. And now Michael de Turk is your leader. Jukka Tolanen gets by at the same time. It's all kicking off.
It is indeed absolute insanity coming down here. Let's check out exactly what happened to Paulie Partanen. I think he just lost it coming up into roller coaster. He's got left front wing damage already, and the car just doesn't want to stop.
Wow. Well then, that would have been his 6th win in this series. And looks like, oh, he already had some at Oak Tree. So that's where it went badly first. He tried to carry on, but the car could not take it.
No, he just carried a little bit too much speed coming in through Oak Tree. Yeah, you can see the front end of that car absolutely crumpled, and no wonder he couldn't get the thing loaded up under braking. Even though those wings are tiny, you need that grip to force the front of the car down, and the front tire's just screaming out in agony, nothing for him to do.
That makes for our second DNF of the day. Isaac Snyder was our first. Oh, wow, car just didn't want to steer. And around it went into the barrier. Thankfully, didn't hit anybody. Well, now I got to check up stats on Turk, because I'm not sure if we've ever seen him win on this channel.
I'm not sure we have, Joe, so knock on all the wood you have if you are a Michael de Turk fan. But this could be something interesting here for the New Yorker.
He has 1 win here in the Sunday Grand Prix Series. And he's vying for the 2nd now with about, looks like 10 laps to go. No, 11 laps to go now.
Yeah, indeed, as you see that battle for what is now P2 coming back together again. Tolanen within about, Bycroft rather, within about 0.4 of a second of Jukka Tolanen. Severi Seppa not completely losing touch. He is about 0.7 of a second behind this, so they've got to be careful to not make a mistake up in front, because that will be all the opportunity that Severi needs. And Andy T is behind them to the tune of about 3.5 seconds, so he has got a lot of hustle still left to do in these final 11 laps if he wants to find himself back on the podium.
Indeed. Well, his laps, though, are looking good. 35.6s to Turk running 36.1s. The bad news for him is that's not enough for him to catch the leader. I was kind of curious if we have enough problems like this, if T could get himself a win despite being shunted off in the first turn. But it's not looking terribly likely, but it's not impossible either. He could at least get himself onto the podium for all is said and done. Basically, right now, it's playing into de Turk's favor. He's got a big gap to a group of cars battling for 2nd behind him. He has to play it cool from here.
And this is one of those moments as a driver, if you are Michael de Turk, that is absolutely nerve-wracking, because you know all of that in your head, and you just have to force all of it out. Focus on your apexes, your corner exits, not make any mistakes. And it's kind of about the old adage about the one way to get somebody to think of an elephant is to tell them to not think of an elephant. If you think about those mistakes, you're more likely to do it. Woohoo! Severi Seppa there, very aggressive under braking.
This has been a frustrating race for Seppa. He's now caught up twice, potentially more than that, during this race, and has not been able to get by either Bycroft or Tolanen in this battle as they come through the snake and pick up the throttle once more. T now down to 3.3 seconds behind him, and 1/10 quicker than Severi Seppa that time.
Yeah, he's clearly got a little bit of speed here to be able to close in, but he has got to be better than 1/10. He has got to close by leaps and bounds if he wants to do this. Severi, on the other hand, I think he may have just been loitering back, saving his tires a little bit, because he looks very, very strong here.
But remember, we've seen how fast Bycroft is in a straight line, so this is going to be just as difficult to execute here. And yeah, he's even pulling away as much of the slipstream as he was giving to the Finn. Now, the Hoosier is looking to be very savvy out there with his setup today, even though he has not been able to get by Tolanen as well. Oh, and Freesia just got by Lino once again behind them. So that switches around 6th and 7th place.
Yeah, that battle continuing to rage as we watch this. Looks like a little bit of a better exit there off of the corner for Seppa as we go back to check out that replay of Gernot getting by Mika Lino.
Just had better straight line speed, pulled up on him, and yeah, blew his way by. I can report that Seppa did not catch Bycroft on that run that we stepped away from. Also, we lost Pablo Suarez in the meantime, so our 3rd DNF of the day, and we're getting information from Isaac Snyder's team that it was his pedals unfortunately failing him and having some technical problems with those. So sad to see that took a driver out prematurely.
And Joe, I've got to give some credit here to Gernot Freesia. He's got a little bit of left front wing damage on that car, so being able to get up and get by Mika Lino with that damage, very, very impressive. There you can see it on your screen, that little upturn on the left side. And I think Mika knows that because he is starting to put pressure. He wants that 6th place back.
And he slides it off the corner behind the Fittipaldi, but it still doesn't hinder him. He's got the slipstream. They pick up speed coming along the backstretch towards the roller coaster, and it's just not enough as the 9 doesn't gain as much as he needs. And for now, Freesia stays safe ahead of them. T's cut it down to 2.5 seconds to Seppa now.
Yeah, he just banged in the fastest lap of the race on that last lap, specifically putting in a best 6th sector time, one of those 6th microsectors there. So very, very quick. That is that final run really going through Hogpen. So a lot of speed there. Severi Seppa now as Andy T sets another fastest lap of the race, doing a good job. I think Seppa knows that that number 2 is going to start getting bigger and bigger in his rear view mirror, and he's going to start getting a little bit worried.
Half a second quicker last time by. Ooh, Karthik Pai is also in a handy battle with Paul Williams right now out of the horseshoe. Williams manages to rebuff him. Now they break down in a NASCAR bend, and another little mistake out of Paul as Karthik is faster into the left hook. There's very little chance to pass. He is plugged up behind. We watch from Vascalampi. There's nowhere to go for the Texan.
No, there is not, but Timu Vascalampi really in the popcorn position here, just absolutely enjoying watching this battle, maybe hoping it comes to blows and he'll be able to pick up 1 or 2 positions. We watch him run up through the rising S's and jumping back to Severi Seppa here. Seppa got a good run out of Oak Tree, but just not able to get that closing speed.
I get the feeling that he's going to have to get a mistake out of Steve. If he wants to get a pass done, he'll need some wheel spin or a slight off or something to try and get the run that he needs. Because otherwise, the car is just not fast enough compared to the 3.
No, he just doesn't have that speed to be able to do it. He's got to get something, but Steve Bycroft here has been able to really do a good job of just keeping that car on lock here. I've got to think that Severi's got to start putting a little bit of pressure, maybe running a little bit of an alternate line, filling that rear view mirror.
Oh. Almost running into the back of the ATS, and thankfully does not hit him. That wound up better than it did for Paul Williams, who I can report had an off in the roller coaster. He gave up both of those spots. He falls down to 11th. Oh my goodness, things are getting a little bit intense now between our drivers.
They are indeed. Andy T been able to work that gap down under 2 seconds now, so he is not done with this yet.
Oof. I get the feeling if he catches up, he's going to turn Severi Seppa into Woody, because he's about to become Andy's toy. And in 7 laps to go, he's got plenty of time to run this down.
Indeed, he does, certainly getting good power down. You can just hear that smooth application of the throttle coming through Oak Tree there. Able to get that gap down another 0.2. Andy is coming on like a train with a full head of steam.
Back to the backstretch once again. Does Seppa try and turn up the wick now that he can see T in his mirrors? Or does he even have the ability to do that at this stage in the race? It's been almost a stalemate amongst these three for much of this event. If we had a problem with Karthik Pai, no, we haven't. We've seen Teemu Vaskilampi get another position. The 8 car up into 9th now.
Indeed, really starting to push ahead a little bit here as they get going. Those 3 drivers there for the podium positions just absolutely together. And there you can see Teemu Vaskilampi able to get that move done on Karthik Pai and regain some positions.
I wonder if there's more damage on Teemu than there is on T, because he's had harder going trying to make his way through the field than Andy has. Whatever the difference is, it's worked out today for Andy, if not a stellar day, because the top 5 certainly won't compare to a 2nd place in qualifying. He's going to want more than this, and that's certainly going to be driving him. I got to think the red mist is down.
Yeah, very much so. The red mist is absolutely down, but it is helping him here. There are very few drivers who drive better while angry, and it would appear to be that Andy T is one of those drivers. He just cut a massive 5/10 out of that gap coming through the sector out of South Bend. He is just on a charge.
Just funneling that spirit of Rossi out there, trying to see if he can use that to his advantage, go faster and drive harder into these corners. They're going to come down to 5 laps to go now. The time is running out, but it is within a 1.5 seconds, and this is the strong point right here out of Hogpen for Andy T, where he seems to launch that car up the front stretch and just gain gobs of time.
Not able to gain nearly as much, though, even though he does set the fastest lap of the race. That gap held true at about 1.3 seconds that entire time. So we really saw him gain some time last time around coming out of South Bend and down into Oak Tree. Let's see if he's able to do that again here on this lap as that battle for P2 just continues to seesaw.
This might come down to the last lap or last 2 or 3 laps here amongst these drivers to settle this out. But then you have to wonder, if Bycroft is so hard for Seppa to pass, will it be easy for T to get either of them in this situation? And Seppa's trying to cling to that rear wing as closely as he can. He knows he needs to be right underneath him as they start to pick up speed here on the backstretch. Wants to get the throttle down, wants to get this slipstream. Does he have it this time?
He's going to try to, but it doesn't look like he's going to have it. That gap continuing to expand a little bit, pushing upwards of 0.3 seconds. But behind them, Andy T again having a stellar run from South Bend down through Oak Tree. He's been able to get that gap under a second.
7/10 currently between himself and these 3 who are vying for what is effectively 2nd place. As we come off of Hog Pen, now he can start to feel the draft from about 0.6 back, and he's going to close in even quicker.
Indeed, he is setting another fastest lap of the race. That is just starting to be a theme here at this point, that every time Andy T crosses the line, we see that purple banner coming across. Gap down to 0.5 seconds. I think with the runs that we've been seeing him have through the second half of this 2nd sector, that we very well could see him maybe make a move here into roller coaster.
Amazing thing, too, is he's got the gap to the lead down to 5 seconds. He has been gaining, as we predicted, but this might be where that trend stops, as now he has to make overtakes from here, and there's 2 little laps left to try and chase down Michael de Turk. He is on them. This backstretch will be a big tell on where Andy T sits compared to the likes of Seppa and Bycroft.
Doesn't get the greatest launch out of Oak Tree. Unfortunately, it just kind of held him back a little bit there. I think there was a little bit of wheel spin going through that number 2. He's able to close down a little bit more, but not fast enough to be able to make the late dive into roller coaster. He's going to have to keep it behind here, but we've seen Andy really prefer to make those moves going down into the horseshoe.
This could be it then. He's right there. This train of 4, will it shuffle by the time we reach the first corner? Onto the front stretch. That was a good run from the number 2. He's got better speed than Seppa. Does he have enough speed? Seppa covers off slightly to the inside. Now he comes back to the racing line, leaves the door open for Andy T, who's going to manage to get side by side down through the horseshoe, but he can't keep the traction and he falls back.
And there, what that issue we talked about, Joe. He may have just overcooked his tires a little bit, and there may not be enough grip in those rear tires to really let him power down off the corner to take that suboptimal racing line to get a move done.
He's used up so much to get here. Is there anything left in it? 3 laps to go now, and 3 positions tantalizingly close in front of him. A second place is on the cards if he can pick them off, but he's got to do 1 per lap at this point.
Yeah, he does, and it doesn't. We've got to see as they all concertina down in their big slide from Severi Seppa, and that's going to gift 1 position over to Andy T.
There's 1 down. Seppa making the critical mistake, but T had to check up. He lost time because of that. Now he's got to make it back up. This is the view from the fin as he comes out of Oak Tree. Now, did he wiggle before he touched the gravel, or did he touch the gravel because he wiggled?
The eternal question. Let's watch him as he brings it down and around. No,
he slid first.
Yeah, he slid first there. I think he had to check himself up a little bit. That was a little bit of rear brake locking as he came through the corner, was carrying too much speed and didn't want to be running into the back of Steve Bycroft.
It's still sitting at 9/10 of a second from T to Bycroft now. So he could make that up in this lap, but we're down to 2 to go. Will this become a last lap pass for second place potentially? It's starting to look like it, but what about this man? Michael DeTurk still hovering at about 3 seconds ahead of his rivals. Andy T manages to get it down to about 4.5 seconds up to Michael DeTurk, but it's a case of too little, too late between T and DeTurk.
Indeed, Andy just having to slice his way through the field a little bit too much. That gap holding at about 0.8 of a second right now, a little bit over. We'll have to see if he can get a better run here. Remember, we suspect that Steve Bycroft is running a bit of a lower downforce setup, so maybe that will help keep Andy T at bay for a little bit. Andy not able to close down as much as we've seen him do in that final sector there before Oak Tree. So just looking like he may be a little far back.
Yeah, he's dropping time. I can see it on my timing screen. The number is getting bigger, so he's not as fast down the back stretch. What about during the front stretch? He's got to get him pretty much here, I would say, if he wants that spot. 7/10, 6/10 is going to be a big ask, though. What kind of exit can he get? As he comes off of it, it's down to 0.5 of a second, but again, it is growing. Steve Bycroft has played his setup perfectly here today. He just is untouchable.
Yeah, he really looks like he has got that setup dialed into perfection. Just enough grip to get you through the fiddly bits and plenty of speed to carry it down the long straightaways. Absolutely perfect here for the Hoosier. He may be able to hold on, but it's Michael DeTurk who we've got to focus on. Just a couple of corners here to go to take the rise up through the rising S's and through South Bend before he can think about tasting that champagne.
So can we see DeTurk take his second ever win here? If he's going to lose it, it'll be of his own doing. Tolan and Bycroft and T still 2 seconds back. And it almost looks like DeTurk has backed off a little bit as he has lost some time. I wonder if he's just trying to bring this thing home from here, knowing he's got the margin for error. Climbing up the backstretch, Andy T is within 0.4 of a second of Bycroft, but once again, the gap is too large to overcome. Michael DeTurk through the roller coaster continues to bleed time, but it looks very intentional from here. Down into Hogpen. Michael DeTurk had it fall in his lap, but that's all he needed to ask for as he takes the win today from third on the grid.
An absolutely mega run from Michael DeTurk to be able to hold that out. Andy T unable to get back into those podium positions. It'll be Tolmanen and Bycroft rounding out the podium.
Bycroft adding to an impressive list of podiums. He's now got 38 on the broadcasts. But we are going to take a quick break here on the Global SimRacing Channel. We'll come back with the official results as well as driver interviews, so stick around.
Conway, who's slow coming up the hill, and all of a sudden here will come Chris Barrett. He's got himself an angle and a line and a way and a no and a how to the outside to take the lead, and he's done it.
Will this be complete though? Conway backs it up, tries to set it up, coming towards the outer loop this time. Barrett now to the race lead, had to recover from more than 5 seconds back after the two were separated on the pit sequence. Now Conway has one more section to try and find a way back around his teammate.
I wonder if he slowed up to make sure he had enough fuel to make it to the end. That will be the only reason why he dropped so dramatically on the run up through the S's section. But as he takes this rise now, if he's left himself enough on the fuel save, he'll have one place to attack. It's here at the heel of the boot. He looks to the inside. He sends up the inside. Oh, and the two make contact.
Bit of a battle down into Brooklands here. And this is Michael Davies trying to keep Lowendick from getting a second spot from his starting position, up from 8th to 7th, trying to get 6th spot. And he's on the inside. It's a drag race as they come onto the old pit straight. And he's going to have the inside. Teddy probably not going to give this one up as he's got the desired position. He has the higher ground. No, he's not going to have to give it up. Look at sending it in deep. Michael Davies is absolutely monster through there. Do they dare 3 wide? Trepanier thinking about it, then backs out, still carrying on down into the Maggots Beckons quarters, and Michael Davies is going to be able to successfully defend that spot.
It is quite amazing the turn of pace that Waring has gotten. Oh, there's been traffic for McGreevy up ahead, Zachary Brown and the Dog Bear BMW, and that has compromised Osowski, and that's going to be Waring trying to thread the needle on the outside coming into the 90, and at the pincer move with Osowski, he almost gets into Waring on the inside, but just manages to pull it up in time.
They've got to be a little bit careful about trying to be too aggressive going down into China Beach. It looks like Day's going to try to be later on the brakes, maybe make the move. Barbosa getting a little bit squirrely under braking, and that is all the opportunity that Rodrigo Mies needs. He's going to try to send it around the outside of madness. Here he comes, diving it down side by side with Raymond Day.
As we watch him go down through the corkscrew, back towards the right side, looking towards another amazing finish, taking up that inside, going in to turn 10, he takes the lead. How does he hold it?
Can Prieto hold on after the send of the rainy curb? Here comes Espez. One final corner for the season. Later on the brakes is Espez. Espez goes for the cut. Prieto parks it on the apex.
As we watch the heart rate monitor almost making contact in front of him, side by side, up through Hawthorne, still nobody willing to give way between them, and through he goes. Kimmo manages to get in, so does Michael DeTurk, as Suarez unfortunately dropping down to 13th.
Let's see, though, if Horvath is going to have anything. Tries to send a little bit of a move up through the S's. Here he comes. A last-minute dive bomb. That is going to be into the inside line. Holding out to the outside as Horvath tries to get it. They spin. They spin across the line and make contact.
Welcome back to VIR. We just watched round 6 in the Sunday Grand Prix series, and Michael DeTurk gets his second ever win in this championship. Jukka Tolmanen finished second behind him, holding off Steve Bycroft, who also played a rear guard pretty much the whole race and racked up yet another podium to his impressive list. Andy T, unfortunately, unable to add to that. He does get 4th, though, after, unfortunately, a little bit of help being pushed off on the first turn. Severi Seppa was P5. A mistake gave up that fourth place, unfortunately, late in the game. And Gernot Friesche only able to get 6 over Mikko Lano, who he had a great fight with all race long. As Timothy Reed finished in 8th, and it's Timo Vascolampi, the man who ran into Andy T, could only climb back up to 9th. Karthik Pai rounds out your top 10.
In 11th, it was Paul Williams, followed by Armando Edwards with Barry Rest and Jean-Francois Boscus, the last of your drivers to finish. Pablo Suarez, Paulie Partonen, and Isaac Snyder, all DNFs here on the day.
Looks like we've got our winner ready to talk to us, Michael de Turk, who managed to hold out as others closed in on him, but also grab up the opportunities when they come. It seems they are scant when they appear, but you're ready to take it. Is this, if I'm not mistaken, Michael, is win number 2 on the broadcast?
Correct. Last time was Long Beach against Andy, and this is the second one that I didn't think was going to come for a while. I was waiting for Long Beach, to be honest.
Well, now you could maybe make number 3 a little bit later then. Talk about when it fell in your lap, though, when you found yourself suddenly leading the race. What was going through your head? Did you feel the nerves start to ramp up?
Absolutely. I should have worn the heart rate monitor this week. I was comfortable sitting behind Paulie. I knew he was gapping me, but I was kind of managing the gap back to Yuka and Steve, and the shade came out, and I thought to myself, don't bin it coming up to Oak Tree. And then I saw Paulie there, and I'm gutted for him, but still excited to get a win.
Understandable. And this is certainly going to help you in the championship. But next week, we're heading to almost the antithesis of VIR with miles of paved runoff at Circuit of the Americas. Will we see you there? And are you looking forward to it?
Absolutely. I like COTA a lot. It's a great track in game. It's a great track in real life. I know it gets a lot of hate. I think that's a lot of single monitor users, and I understand the apexes are hard to see, but I think it's a really fun track and offers some unique challenges and passing opportunities in the stadium section.
Yeah, and usually puts on a pretty decent show for us. Congratulations on the win. Anybody you want to thank for this one?
Thank you. Thanks to Yuka for practicing with me last night. Certainly helped. I know we had a good time doing it. Andy for the encouragement, as always. Our setup group, and I hope my dad enjoyed watching the broadcast. So.
All right, we hope so as well. That was Michael de Turk, your winner here for round 6. And DJ's caught up with the man that he was practicing with that may be regretting that a bit, because that gave a win to his rival. Yuka Tolanen is with DJ.
Indeed, Yuka, a really, really tough race there, just holding off Steve behind you the entire time. Talk me through that.
Yeah, well, same. I didn't keep up with Mike as I was concentrating to keep it on track and keep Steve behind. But yeah, could have been another opportunity to take the first win. But congrats to Mike. He really deserved a win, even if it was a bit lucky one, but he has had so much bad luck. And also comparing to last week when I ruined his race, I must be really happy for him. But yeah, I don't know. I'm really exhausted right now, so I don't really have even much to say, but yeah, it was a tough race, and in the end I saw Andy catching us, so I tried to speed up a bit, but yeah, tough one.
Well, indeed. Well, I want to ask you a little bit, because we were doing some speculation in terms of setup. What kind of setup were you running in terms of aero? It seemed like you had some pretty good speed at a straight line.
I could claim that I had one of the best top speeds, let's say. I removed quite lots of wing from the set that I was using yesterday practicing, and I was really struggling on some corners. So yeah, it was a low down force setup, and also Steve said me after the race that he ran out of gears behind me. So yeah, I guess it was then quite nice top speed.
Well, indeed, if you're able to make him run out of gears, I got to say it's got to be pretty good. But looking ahead, we head to COTA next. Obviously, sort of leaps and bounds different in terms of layout from from this circuit. But how do you like the circuit? How do you like your chances?
Been a while since I've been racing there, and it will be the first time with this car, so it will be interesting. I hope I can join. But yeah, definitely interesting one coming.
I think interesting to say the least. Anybody you want to thank for this second place here today, Yuka?
As always, you guys, CDC people, Michael, Pauli. Yeah, thanks.
Well, thank you and congratulations. That was Yuka Tolonen, your second place driver here today. And now, Joe, I believe you've caught up with the man on the charge, Andy T.
Indeed. And a reminder, it's a family show, Andy, so we'll have to watch our language because I'm sure maybe a little heated after what happened at the start of the race. Talk to us about it.
Well, Teemu decided to give me a fun race. Isn't he a nice chap? What a loving gift to give me in turn one by sticking his nose in my butt. That was good. So I just stuck my male brain on and tried to recover from there with rear wing damage. Great fun. I can just see it on the broadcast now. Great work, Teemu. Good lines.
Well, I like the positive spin on things at the least, but man, what a run through. We were watching your pace. You actually were faster than Michael, which I'm sure stings somewhat. But as you started to catch the likes of Bycroft, Tolan, and Seppa at the end, did you think you have enough to try and get by them? Because the laps are running out.
I just about ran out of laps, but I mean, I was going to get Severy when he made a mistake in Oak Tree and he lost it all by himself. So that was fun. Thanks for the gift. And then the next guy ahead was Steve Let You Bycroft. So all I had to do there would have been show my nose. But unfortunately, it didn't really get the run and was just out of laps. But yeah, I mean, great fun. Really good fun.
Yuka was saying that he seemed to have trimmed it out more than he expected, but even you seemed slightly faster than them at times. How much did you have the car trimmed out today?
Oh, super trimmed out, like ridiculously. So I made the community set and I just made it safe. Because if I give people the set I was driving, it would not be good, like no good feedback. So yeah, I mean, the straights are so long, so you just take as much wing off as you can so that you can survive the corners. And then, easy overtakes on people, really.
That certainly looked like it. That was helpful, I'm sure, to you coming back through. It was just shy of a podium, but at least valuable points back to fourth. Anybody you want to give a shout out before you take off?
Yeah, huge congrats to Michael for the win and Yuka for the podium. Yeah, great work, guys. A big F to Pauli, man. That's so unfortunate. He would have had a free win there, and he decided to spin all by himself without A2 Vanya Kangas behind him. And yeah, just thanks to the family as per usual. And Hoops, you're great. And if you're talking to Barry next, enjoy the next 30 minutes of talking.
Shots have been fired. Andy T, fourth place today. It's going to be DJ who gets to enjoy talking to Barry.
Well, we've caught up here with Barry West, our 13th place finisher, and Barry, a little bit of an innocuous run out there today, but any run you finish at VIR has got to feel good.
Yeah, just finishing here is the thing to do. You usually pick up places. I messed up both qualifying laps, so I was pleased to be out of the thick of it, lap one, to be honest. Yeah, I had a tremendous 14 laps with Pablo and Armando, and apologies to Pablo. I lost it coming out of Oak Tree and he had nowhere to go. So just one of those things which got Armando by. But yeah, and I was catching him at places and then it just too far away. So yeah, I was pleased with P13. I said to teammate Paul Williams, I said, I'll take P13 at the start of this race. And yeah, I'm glad I got there in the end.
Well, you did indeed. I want to ask you, what kind of setup were you running? Were you running high downforce, low downforce? What was getting you forward?
Well, my teammate did a tweak on Andy's, I think, and we got a bit more wing off, and we managed to get up to 170, just about 170 on the straight, which is good enough for the corners, but not like the fast guys getting up to 173, 174 mile an hour on the straight. But yeah, that was quick enough for me. Yeah, and I lost it trying to push a little bit too much, trying to get away from Pablo. So the pressure, he was like 0.3 behind me for 14 laps. So it was the pressure that told in the end of the mistake. But fair play to him. But unfortunately, he didn't finish the race. I think he must have had some damage. But yeah, it's a lovely track. This it's just so rewarding when you get it right. But there's so many places you can make mistakes. It's a real old school track. Yeah.
Well, we go from old school to new school next week in the form of COTA. How do you like your chances there? How do you like the track?
Oh, I don't know. What with this new tire model, I don't know if it's going to be better. But yeah, I never really liked it much there before. But yeah, we just have to see how it goes, I suppose. The trouble is, it's a bit, two ways again. You can have high or low downforce, and you just get crucified on that long straight if you don't have much. If you don't have, take the wing off, and then it makes it really not nice to drive in the corners. So yeah, it's one of those. I'm looking forward to Alton.
Fair enough. But anybody you'd like to thank for the run here today, Barry?
My teammate for this setup. I mean, I just had it just before the race, so I'm well pleased. Fastest all week, so you can't do better than that, can you? I mean, just glad to be in the top split. It's just if you have an accident at my level, it can knock you down, because I just got over 3,000, then an incident knocks you back down again, and it's a bit frustrating that you're not going to get many points at the back of the grid, but it's just fun to be racing here. That's all.
Well, fantastic. Thank you so much. That was Barry West, your 13th place finisher here today. Joe?
And that's going to wrap us up. Before we go, again, we want to give a thank you to our sponsors, the Majors Garage. Make sure and check them out and use our discount code MajorsGSRC for 10% off. We have a link down in the description below. But also a thank you to the Lotus 79 community for bringing us back for another season of coverage. And also a thank you to the companies that provide the software and hardware for our broadcast listed here on your screen. Additional thanks to June Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. Check out her Bandcamp for more great work. And thanks to the team today, DJ, Ryan, and Dougie. You can find more info about GSRC at globalsimracingchannel.com or through our social media. Also, check out our merchandise store. It's simply gsrc.storenvy.com, and there's also a link for that in the description below. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel while you're down there so you don't miss a moment. And as we said, the next race is at Circuit of the Americas Sunday, January 30th at 11:30 a.m. Eastern. We have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar, including a very busy day today. Up next is the Absolute Beginners League going to Knock Hill for the first time at 2 p.m. Eastern. But until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.